Hello again, everyone. Um, this is going to be probably a very short this video. I'm going to finish 2 more pages here, but then I'm going to read the intro to this other magazine, which was a retrospective not long after Toth died. It was in 2006. I think he died in June, if I remember correctly. I wrote about it on my blog at the time. So I'm going to finish this one, which was this magazine, if you recall, where Toth did a number of interviews here, really thorough ones. So if you remember, I finished the interview with Paul Revoch and Toth, and then he had a checklist of Toth's work, which is a number of pages. People, I had this one shit poster come into my one of my Toth videos and say how he was really nothing. He didn't do much. He wasn't recognizable with one character or one comic book run and so on. Look at this work. He was recognized for his art, for his storytelling, for his anatomy, for his acting of characters, for everything, for the lifelike quality of his work. Anyway, so yeah, I finished Paul Revoch's interview with him here, which was very long and very thorough, and just probably hands down the best interview I've read of Toth's. So we'll go here. Just it's called Appreciation. Alex Toth, 1973, super mentor. Paul Powers, Aussie storyboard artist on learning from the legend. And this drawing right here, by the way, Toth drew it, but they superimposed Kurt Swan's Superman face onto Toth's drawing, unfortunately. And, I like some stuff that I've seen of Kurt Swan. I know he drew like over 1,000 issues of Superman, whether from Action Comics to Superman, which was extraordinary. And something about his Superman, it seemed, how can I put it? Not that super. It seemed pedestrian. He seemed like a guy. And Superman isn't a guy. So yeah, if a Kurt Swan, fan is listening, I get it. And I do like some of the stuff, particularly the more, I guess, realistic looking stuff that I've seen from him. And his Superman looked like a guy, again, at the expense, I think, of the fact that he's Superman. He looked more like just an average person who happened to be Superman. But that's my thing. So yeah, they superimpose. Look at the simplicity of Toth's faces there, and then a little more detail there, a little more generic there, a little more, I don't know, just average, let's just say. And I always resent that when artists do that. But I will say, when I saw John Romita Sr. was tasked to do that with Marvel Comics when he was the art director, happened to be that every face looked better. So whoever might argue about that, I get it, believe me. But their faces ended up being better. More beautiful, more handsome for the women, more handsome the men, more beautiful the women. Everything looked fresher, better. Anyway, so it says by Paul Power, North Sydney, NSW, Australia. The Eric Porter studio had finalized work on Hanna-Barbera's Charlie Chan and the Chan Clan, finishing up Australia's first animated feature, Marco Polo and the Red Dragon, written by Shelley Mayer, Alex Toth's mentor at DC in the 1940s. The next Hanna-Barbera, the next HB gig for us to subcontract from HB Australia, just a few miles away in St. Leonard's, was, ta-da, Super Friends. Alex was in the city to design and produce the animated show. I was a junior layout artist, and a bunch of us, Monty Wedd, Hal English, Robert Smith, Anthony Chan, and myself invited Alex to a local pub for a beer. I was 17 years old. Alex was 48. Needless to say, I was ready to meet Alex with a big bag of comics for him to sign. We were all comic strip artists working in animation, and I was the one most familiar with Toth's work. I asked Alex if he had worked on the movie How to Murder Your Wife, starring Jack Lemmon. Well, starring Jack Lemmon and I don't think it was. It wasn't. Was it? What's her name? I should know her name. I mean, because I'm using her as a model for something. Verna Lisi, the Italian actress, the Italian beauty, the stunning beauty. I was looking for beautiful women to model someone after, and I think I looked up at one point the most beautiful woman in the world, and she came up in the top. Sometimes she was number one. Verna Lisi, particularly when she was younger, she was just stunningly gorgeous. An Italian actress, Verna Lisi, and I believe she was in the movie that's being mentioned here, How to Murder Your Wife. I believe so. Starring Jack Lemmon. I know he was in there, and I believe she was. Okay. And the cartoon TV shows Space Angel and Clutch Cargo. Clutch Cargo? Alex was puzzled and wondered aloud how could I have guessed he worked on it. I just know your style, said I. From then, a friendship was struck, and Alex took me under his wing, teaching storytelling first. Keep it simple, stick to the story, draw like crazy, render simply on everything. I mean, again, there's something that's missed here with people. Sometimes they think he's simple, simple, simple. Yeah, sure. But the guy gave form to everything. It was a lot of thought there, and it was a lot of rendering at times too. So when he says here, keep it simple, stick to the story, draw like crazy. Draw like crazy. Render simply, but render simply. And especially in the end stage, I mean, you could draw like crazy, quote unquote, in a pencil stage, right? Put everything in order and put all the perspective, everything, and then ink it simply. You don't have to add all the stuff that you put, within the pencils, even though some people try to ink everything that's there, which is ridiculous. Design films, comics, and movie storyboards. It was a great 6 months spent with him, and thereafter I was a sponge, soaking up what I could from the master. I used his lessons in my Sunday comic strip, Professor Om, on my in-progress comic book, East Meets West, a science fiction western, and during my 1977 ghosting assignment on John Dixon's Sunday strip, Airhawk. Toth influenced my decision to work in American film as a storyboard artist, eventually working on such films as Predator, Top Gun, Say Anything, The Edge, and Con Air, right up to my current work on Ben Stiller's Zoolander and Arak Attack, these last two due to be released in the summer of 2001. To me, some of the fantastic artists who worked in comics are just as much film directors as comic book practitioners. Jack King Kirby, Neil Adams, John Dixon. John Dixon, if I remember correctly, I think I do, a great artist who did The Eternal Warrior for Valiant, for Jim Shooter's Valiant. A solid artist. I mean, just really good. Realistic in an interesting way. Very good storyteller. I mean, very direct, very simple. John Dixon, good stuff. Check it out if you haven't. Eternal Warrior. Those Valiant comics were really good. That entire, company was great. It was a great relief from some of the Marvel and DC stuff at the time. And Jim Shooter, I love Jim Shooter. I mean, he's a hell of a writer, a great editor, and just always willing to discuss these things. I saw him on a 7-hour a show on a channel on YouTube on 7 hours. Incredible. The guy's a font of knowledge, and he started writing professionally for DC Comics when he was 13 years old. Pretty incredible. They didn't know he was 13 though. When they found out, they had to speak to his mother and figure things out. So, and the very, very best is Alex Toth. So again, he goes, to me, some of the fantastic artists who worked in comics are just as much film directors as comic book practitioners. Jack King Kirby, Neil Adams, John Dixon, and the very, very best is Alex Toth. Thanks, and God bless you, Alex. You've made this little Aussie and all of your fans the world over very happy. Bravo, mate. And then I guess they mentioned that Super Friends cover that Toth drew left Alex's cover to limited collector's edition comic book C41 featuring editorial surgery quote-unquote editorial surgery, replacing Toth's Superman head with a Kurt Swan version. If you've passed this oversized beauty up in earlier collecting safaris, be sure to snatch this puppy up next time, as it includes an extraordinary illustrated 10-page essay by Alex with Bob Foster on how TV cartoons are made, plus a great autobiography page by the master. I remember that 10-page lesson on how to animate from Alex Toth. It's in one of the collections that they have. It's fantastic. I mean, if you're interested in animation, but it was all, hand done at that time, so it's very different than what they're doing today, but yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. Okay. So after 6 videos, this is the 7th one on Toth. I guess it took 6 videos to get through this, which is pretty incredible, and most of them like over an hour. But they're so thorough, they're so rich, these interviews. This was January 2001, and then in another magazine, maybe by the same publisher, if I'm not mistaken. Roy Thomas was involved here. I think he was the editor-in-chief, possibly. He was the old comic book writer. I think he picked up Fantastic Four and Spider-Man after Stan Lee left. So, remembering comics legend Alex Toth, industry tributes, never seen interview, unseen art. So there's another interview in here with Toth. And if he's referring to what I think he is, I read that interview in Xerox copies years ago. So let's just read the intro. And then until next time. But let's see. Alex Toth, Tribute to a Titan. All these things are on Alex Toth. This is a full Alex Toth retrospective. Okay. So I think for now, as I said, I'll just read the intro, and then each one for each of the next few videos. And they show a lot of his earlier art here as well. You still saw the greatness. I mean, look at that. Look at the hand gestures. Look at the delineation, excuse me, of the shirt, of the shadows, of the details there. Incredible. Incredible. Okay. So Roy Thomas, this is Toth's famous duck. He even drew them on the postcards he sent me. Well, he was knocked out by that point. I guess he was trying to say that he was old and tired. Maybe that's what he was trying to allude to, likely. But funny. So let me just read that one. See what I found in my ancient doodle notebooks, Roy. Lettered? I'm sorry, I can't read it. Printable as is, if not reduced too much, mind, two worthy topics. Yeah, because he used to send in his essays, handwritten. I don't know if they were all written on postcards, but they were all handwritten. And they're very legible. You can read them. Even though I had a little difficulty, I think, reading one of them before, so I said, you know what, I'll skip that because I don't want to stumble too much on the air, on the video. So, Roy Thomas writes, who cares? Toth did. And then he says, my relationship with Alex Toth was a backward thing compared to most. It began stormily, but improved, and I'm very thankful for the memory of it. Since 1947-48, Toth has been one of my favorite comics artists, based primarily on a handful of Golden Age, Green Lantern, and Justice Society of America stories, and to a lesser extent on his Johnny Thunder in All-American Western. Work he himself eventually disowned and had moved beyond by the 1960s. His later art intrigued me, even if he journeyed from romantic lyricism into almost pure graphics. Opening a comic book containing a Toth story, I always knew at once I was in the presence of a true master of storytelling and design. But I don't mind confessing, my heart still belongs to his Green Lantern. So funny that he says here that he basically disowned them. And look, while they were good, they were not as good, clearly, as he became. And I see that. I remember when I first came across those, I was like, I always used to skip over them. But I did look at them, I did study them, and they were good, but not, again, nowhere near as good as what he ended up being. And he got better and better and better with age, which should be the case for artists, at least honest ones who put in an honest effort, but it's just not the case. So he says, I've related before the story of our sole in-person encounter. While I was casting about for backup stories in the Avengers during that brief time in 1971, when all Marvel Comics leaped from 32 to 48 interior pages. Whoa. Stan Lee informed me that Alex Toth, who lived in L.A., had written him concerning work, and Stan wondered if I had anything I could send him. He added that Toth had said he'd like to be a creative part of the process. I quickly typed up what I called Notes Toward a Plot for a Black Panther story of 8 or so pages, a racially charged episode set in Rudyarda, a stand-in for apartheid South Africa. Therein, I explained the kind of tale I wanted to do and various potential elements of the plot, and I invited Alex to run with it. Now, I forgot this, because I know that he, maybe was going to do some work for Marvel, but that would have been interesting, and clearly it didn't happen. But let's see what happened. A week later, Stan and I received a handwritten diatribe from Toth that began, "Is this your corporate idea of a plot?" Hilarious, in all caps. He then proceeded to lambaste the story because it rambled, lacked structure, etc., ignoring the fact that I specifically stated that it wasn't a full plot. I wrote back that I'd been told he wished to be a creative part of the team, not just the artist, but that I'd gladly send him a complete synopsis if he'd assure me he would follow it. I never heard back from him. Wow. He was very, very clearly strong in his opinions, very opinionated. So funny. So then in late 1976 or so, this was 5 years later, wow. So 5 years later, soon after I'd moved to LA, I attended the first meeting of the Comic Art Professional Society, assembled by Mark Evanier, Sergio Aragonis, and Don R. Christensen. Among the dozens of pros present, a bear of a man was pointed out to me as Alex Toth. Determined to forge a fresh start, I walked up and introduced myself by name as a longtime admirer of his work. He looked down at me haughtily, though not in an entirely unfriendly manner, and said, "Oh, yes." I mean, it's hilarious. "Oh, yes. You and I had that little altercation a couple of years ago. I glossed over that as being in the relevant past. We exchanged a few non-committal sentences. We each moved on, and that, alas, was the first and last time I ever met Alex Toth face to face." Sometime later, I revived Alter Ego in the late 1990s, which is this magazine. I didn't know it was going on for that long. I guess it went on even before the 90s. Wow. This was 2006, so incredible. Comic book artist editor John B. Cook handed over to me some of Toth's illustrated missives, thinking I might utilize them in AE. John had put together the excellent CBA number 11, the one that I finished reading, devoted to Toth. We've duplicated a few of its images in this issue since it's still available from Tomorrow's Publishing. Oddly, perhaps because by then, Alex and John were permanently on the outs. Wow, okay. The artist and I exchanged a number of notes during the last few years of his life with never a hint of tension. At least once he accepted the fact that I had related in print my version of my one and only Toth anecdote. I offered to print his own comments on the matter, but he declined, leading me to believe he had no quarrel with my basic account, at least in terms of the raw facts, if not interpretation. Nor did he ever complain about the art, his own and others, that I printed with his letters and essays. I explained I was doing the best I could to illustrate his points. By and large, his personal remarks to me were scribbled in the margins of my own letters which he sent back to me, and on the envelopes which contained them. Not wishing to use the same before I forget, because Toth had a column for a number of years called Before I Forget, which was where he, again, was very generous with his time and his ideas and thoughts about comic books. It's awesome. Before I Forget, heading for his column that CBA had, I utilized a pair of word balloons. In one illustration, he sent as a title instead, "Who cares? I do." Who cares? I do. That's what he wrote. And that's why this title. He seemed to enjoy the exposure in Alter Ego. He wrote a note on one envelope to keep those $50 coming in. I tried my best using his essays and art in most cases. A year or so ago, Jim Amash, once a friend and familiar of Alex's, and I toyed with the idea of interviewing him for Alter Ego. When I asked Toth about the possibility, he wrote back that it would depend on the questions asked. Jim and I were encouraged, but not long afterward, I received a postcard from Alex giving a new address, which I instantly suspected of being a managed care facility. Yeah, I remember hearing about that, I think, in the Toth movie. Yeah, by the way, there's a movie, documentary about Alex Toth called Simplicity. I believe the art and life of Alex Toth is called Simplicity. And I own it on a DVD of a Space Ghost, I guess, collection. And it's in one of the sides. But it's available on YouTube as well, the entire movie. It's great. It's really beautifully done. A lot of peers and also modern artists discuss Toth. There's videos of his children, I think even of Toth himself, discussing his life and work. It's beautifully done. Check it out. Simplicity. So it says here, sorry, 1 second. A facility, yeah, managed care facility. He scribbled on the card that this would be probably my last address. Unfortunately, he was only too prescient. I wrote him back, wishing him well, but never received a reply. Well, in one sense, I did. In February of this year, I received an envelope stuffed with 2 handwritten essays, totaling several sheets. Alex had run across them and felt I might be able to use them. The envelope was emblazoned with his trademark duck. Why a duck? You'd have to ask Chico Marx. And a note. I put them with other Toth materials I intended to use, and still do in a future issue, unless Alex's heirs have other plans for them. Incidentally, my thanks to the 4 Toth children, Eric Toth, Damon Toth, Carrie Marash, and Dana Palmer, for their gracious cooperation with this special issue. And check out the official Alex Toth website at Toth Fans. Yeah, I still check it out myself every so often. So while one could argue with many points Alex makes in his missives, nor would he have generally minded that, one must always respect the sincerity and depth of his passion, his desire to see comics be the best they can be, even if there can be valid disagreements about precisely what that means. And that's really the gist of Toth's life. He was always pushing for comics to be better, to be taken more seriously, to be respected, to basically force people to respect them by doing the best work you can do. That was always his thing. Him, Will Eisner, it was always their way to just, to not have their comic books be dismissed as they've always been in a lot of ways. Most general people, general audiences, people who just who watch the superhero movies, they don't get it that this was a serious art form, regardless of the bulk of it is crap, written by and drawn by people who couldn't give a damn. It's a great medium. It's a legitimate, art. So he says, when I was informed Alex had passed away on May 27th, the news was not unexpected, but still saddened me. Besides a loss to the comics world, I had enjoyed my latter-day association with him, even if it had been from a distance and with a light and not too personal touch. Alex Toth will continue to influence comics and even other media artists in the future, as he has for the past 5 or 6 decades, in ways that others will expand upon in the pages that follow. He was one of the giants. Bestus, Roy. And he says, P.S. Because of the outpouring of tributes to Alex Toth, we've had to delay both our letters section and Bill Shelley's report on the 1966 KeelerCon till next month. PPS. Oh yeah. And season's greetings. This was done in December, so it was a while after Toth died, I guess, to get it all collected. So yeah, then we're going to be reading each account from these individuals who wrote these articles of Toth. And then I think, yeah, there was an interview. There was another interview of Toth. I wonder which one it was. I'm trying to... Joe Kubert also chimes in, which is awesome. He's a hell of a cartoonist. 1 second. There's another Toth checklist there. Where's the other interview? More Toth testimonials. I mean, look at that, man. That's awesome. They said a long-lost interview of Toth's. You know what? Sorry, 1 second. Toth had it all. This Toth was a driven artist. Alex was into everything, photography, memory. Plus, he was a true genius in his field. It was worth... I guess it's in here somewhere. Oh, man. Terry Olsen also discusses Toth for about 6 issues. Terry Olsen, again, is arguably the most famous inker comic books ever had, who made everyone look good. He was an incredible cartoonist, in his own right. When he drew Popeye and stuff, it just the way he did that is just, I don't know, reminiscent of that classic. I think Carl Seeger, if that's his name, if I remember correctly. So yeah, this will be the next one, and until then, thanks for watching, everyone. If you could subscribe, I would appreciate it. If you could like this video and watch all the other Toth ones. This is my 7th Toth video, and I also have a few shorts, some excerpts from the long ones, because some of them go for an hour and a half, some of them for a little less than an hour. But check them out, and then again, if as a reminder, I'm going through all of these interviews and testimonials and I guess retrospectives on Toth before I get into the actual art books that I have, and I will go through them. And clearly, I'll have a lot to say about them, but I just want to show you. Basically, this was show and tell about Toth. And hopefully it can open people's eyes and consider getting some of his work and reading it and learning from it and becoming better artists, particularly comic book artists, becoming better artists for it. Okay, everyone, take care. Until next time. Thanks.